If you're clean and sober today and there's some funky idea you have in your head and there's something you haven't told anyone, you need to tell at least one person what's really going on. The thoughts, the thing, doesn't have to be the whole wide world, doesn't have to be a group. It could be whoever you feel safe, and you could tell this person this thing and this person this thing. So there's no right and wrong way to do it. Just make sure you talk about the things that you need to come out. That's going out to people that are struggling. For families or for anyone that's searching, like if you can and you do have the resources, family coaching, family therapy, wraparound services, case management, we don't want to be at Next Level Recovery Associates. We don't want to be a Band-Aid. Our goal is to create lasting change in the individual, the family system, or in the corporate space.
Good afternoon. My name is Graham Durgee, and I'm the founder and CEO of New Waters Recovery in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to our weekly podcast, Finding New Waters. Our goal in creating Finding New Waters is to provide a resource for families to help navigate the complexities of supporting a loved one struggling with substance use or mental health. When we find ourselves in crisis due to one of these issues, most people have no idea where to turn. We hope to shed some light onto what is often the darkest hour for many families.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Finding New Waters. And today I have Erica Cooney, one of our primary therapists here at New Waters Recovery, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And then our guest on the show is Amanda Marino, and she is the co-founder of Next Level Recovery Associates. Amanda, thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with us today.
Thank you both so much for having me. It's such an honor and humbling always to be asked to do things like this.
Absolutely. So I thought we could start off, if you're open to it, maybe just tell us a little bit about you and what kind of brought you to the field, and what do you like? What have been your experiences?
Well, when I speak at a conference, an event, I say there's like two versions of me, right? So there's me, there's Amanda, the co-founder, I started a nonprofit for women to go back to school and recovery, and had that going for years. I decided to fill a gap in my community that really needed to happen, like the before, during, and after piece. And there's a lot of people that are doing it out there. And when I worked for a number of people as a contractor, like I did all the work that my team does. Like I've done companioning, I've done all of it. And I think it gives me a different perspective. And I want to continue to evolve and try new ways to meet people where they are and to try to make and create lasting change. So that's what our company is all about. I had this idea. I had a full-time cushy job, and I told my ex-husband, I said, I can't make it to Christmas. I need to leave my job and start now. Mm-hmm. And I was already building it up on the side. So by the time I left in August, I couldn't really make it even close to December. I opened up my business and quickly saw that I needed a co-founder. And that's when I, got that direct hit on a run, or a spiritual hit of it has to be Blake. And we started in January of 2020. And we've been extremely, fruitful and abundant since then.
That's great. That's great.
And then who the other side of me is.
Uh-huh. No, go ahead.
The other side of me is I'm a mom. I have an almost 18-year-old son who was 18 months old when I got clean and sober. He'll be 18 on the 18th this month. I have an 11-year-old daughter. I'm a single mom, a homeowner. I love to be active. I love to adventure. I love to travel. And I just love to live life to the fullest and be happy and free. So that's who I really am.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a father myself. And that's, we have to balance that, right? I mean, as much as I love the work that I do and the people that we get to help, I mean, being a parent and doing those things is amazing for sure. Can you tell us a little bit about Next Level Recovery? So I know you mentioned Sober Companion. I know you guys also do intervention work, case management, things like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, what does Next Level Recovery do?
So we are a boutique concierge, programming that is designed, once we do an assessment with an individual and a family, that we create a custom plan for. So it can be before treatment, we start working with them, during treatment, and after, or we can do all of the above. And sometimes it's in place of. So if somebody's been to so many treatments and their struggle is like applying what their aftercare plan is or applying what they've learned into the real life, we can kind of handhold them, right? Our coaches and our companions can handhold them and then like titrate down on how we do that, because we don't want to coddle and be codependent. But I'll tell you, a lot of the people we're dealing with today, I think it's after the COVID thing, it made it worse. Like they're terrified to like take this sheet of like an aftercare paper and take those action steps by themselves. Mm-hmm. So they're scared to get jobs. They're they're scared to rekindle with their family. And so we saw a need in our community. Like there's a lot of people that do this all over the country, but in South Florida, there was really nobody doing what we did like as a hub. There's people that had like maybe a main office in New York or LA or Ocala or just different places. But there was like, I'm from here and Blake's from here. So we work here in South Florida, but we also work a lot in New York, a lot in Texas, a lot in California and overseas. In Europe and as well as South America, we have a Latin team, a Spanish speaking team as well. Okay. So we're just constantly trying to improve the way that we all do this. And we feel like it's our responsibility as people that have a pretty strong social media presence to help remove stigma, to help educate people, to help people not feel alone, because it's a lot less intimidating to send a direct message to somebody than it is to pick up the phone. And I've had a lot of like attorneys and professionals over the years on LinkedIn that they've never told anyone. They're super high functioning, right? And they send a message, like, hey, I need help, but I don't want anyone to know. I don't want to lose and I try to tell them like, you're not going to lose your license, but they don't believe me.
Right.
So we've tried to really, and we continually evolve, right? We're meeting about our clients every week. And we're always trying to do better.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So what does that look like for a client when a client reaches out? I know you mentioned it could be before treatment or after, but like if a client that's in potential need of your services, they reach out to you, and kind of what does that process look like?
Well, since we've grown, we now have a couple people in place. So myself and Blake, our focus is overseeing the whole company and overseeing every case. We no longer take on our own clients. Mm-hmm. There was no way to travel the country this year, and for Blake to start his doctorate program, for us to continue at the capacity we were, right? So we took a long time to get our hand selected. We hand select everyone that works for us. We don't have a large list of contractors. We know everybody that's on our list of people that we use, and we know them and what makes them tick, what client they're going to align with. So Sarah, who was a nurse, she does all of our first screenings, and she's our team and family manager. So everything starts and begins with either Sarah or Danielle, Sarah Frias or Danielle Moldine. And Danielle is our clinical outreach. Danielle went to school, got her bachelor's in psychology and then her master's in special education, and then decided, I don't want to teach this. And so then she started working for another company for a while. And then when she came to me, I'm like, oh my God, look at you she's like, I never thought I'd ever use my degree. And look, like this is special, and you're teaching and you're
sure
in the psychology piece. So we have found these, like, there's a video, I don't know if you checked out my Instagram, but there's a video we made the other day, which like literally melts my heart. It was an idea I had that says, where each team member at this lunch would say, I am next level, I am next level, I am next level. And so it goes through all of that. And then it shows the end, our videographer did like everybody saying it at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
I am next level. And like, I'm not on it and Blake's on it, because we're big on like lifting up our team. We want to highlight and focus them and make it more about them than it is about us these days, because they're the magic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Completely agree. I would say, obviously at New Waters, I mean, we do detox, we do assessments, and everybody is an outbound referral, right? So, working with the families, with the client on the front end to help them, make the decision to come into treatment. But then we're just kind of the starting point, right? So, what you're talking about, just kind of the idea of like sober companionship, case management, even sometimes interventions on the front end. We definitely see the value in those types of services. And, I could speak for hours about this, but since everybody is an outbound referral, obviously people are at different places in their level of motivation for change or to take that next step in their recovery. And then we also see, unfortunately, with the disease of addiction, we just see a lot of recidivism, the word that I'm looking for that I can't find right now.
Yeah. We know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying.
I would try to say it, but then I'm going to butcher it too. So
we'll just move past that, right?
She'll say it. She'll say it right.
Yeah, there we go.
Recidivism.
So, we want to, obviously, all of us, I think, right? We want to lower that. We want to see people be successful, take that first step and be able to see progress as they move forward. And that is one service, I think, that a lot of time is very valuable in helping people reach that goal, that a lot of people just don't take advantage of, is that, for maybe different reasons, and maybe you could speak to this, but maybe feeling like, they can do it on their own, right? Or just not being willing to ask for that additional layer of help, or to think, to be in the mindset that if I just do detox and residential, I should be cured and fine. But a lot of times having someone that can be there as a resource and provide additional support and accountability can just be such a huge help in this process.
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of backtrack because a few things that you said
Sure.
came up. So the first thing is like, doing what the services you do, detox and residential, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your admissions team and like your, intake staff and your, detox therapist notice on the front end that this family is like definitely needs your family program, but is way too much. They're lighting your phone up. They don't understand. They're not educated. We're called often then to kind of step in. And then we support, and we're a third-party voice of whatever your clinical recommendations are. So now they have two different organizations that have no association with each other except for their trusted partners, giving the same messaging, right? So that's one way where providers will call us and be like, Amanda, like, we need you guys to we have a family coach, we have a psychiatrist, we have a psychologist, we have a dietitian, and then we have coaches and, companions that are specialties to everything. And then on the back end, people go home and sometimes they go home to their house still with who knows what in it still, right? Like, is there paraphernalia? Is there stashes? Like, we do this thing where we'll go home with people, clean up their house, like get them settled, start implementing that plan, making sure they make their first few therapist appointments. They're making meetings, they're meeting people. They're not isolating, because that's the easiest and most common thing to do.
Absolutely.
And especially if there's no, we had a couple clients recently that came in themselves, right? And there was no family involvement, but I quickly saw we need to have somebody in the family for support and for backup, right? If it's just like an adult male or adult female that comes to us and wants services, we still need somebody else for their protection to be involved, right? And so we do clinical staffings every single week, and we look at, okay, what's working, what's not? Is this the right coach for the person? Do we need to change something? Maybe change therapists? We go through all that stuff with our psychologist, and usually the people that come to us, this is not their first go around. Unfortunately, I wish someone called me on their first go around. Oftentimes the adolescents I deal with, but it's not their first problem experience, right? But I would love for a family to call me with their kid 17 years old, and us to give them the support and education, them to have family therapy, family coaching, have a companion coach that could take their kid out a few days a week and learn how to, live life and some of those skills that those with the substance use disorder miss along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we were chatting a little bit before we started the episode, and you were talking about just this idea of stigma, and I think along the same lines of the conversation we're having, those barriers or those things that keep people from moving forward, or reduce their level of motivation, or maybe sometimes keep them stuck in patterns of thought and behavior. I wonder if you want to maybe just chime in a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on stigma and maybe how that's causing some issues for people?
Well, I know, I was 10 years ago, I was one of the first people that talked about being in recovery from LinkedIn, on LinkedIn. And I would get these, I'm talking 100,000 comment kind of posts.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, scared to do it. And then I did it, but I realized, wow, like I'm making an impact here. Like people are seeing this put together woman and, oh no, she couldn't be a drug addict. And like, I want to show that, hey, like what you see today isn't what walked in the door 16 years ago, but this is what can happen. And like, I have people say, well, you shouldn't say all these things. But, there's always the chimers and the associated. Like you shouldn't, set people's standards too high and let them not meet up. Like just because you graduated college and you did all this stuff doesn't mean okay, well, you know what? I'm just letting them know it's possible. Like from a girl that thought she was too stupid and too damaged and broken and messed up to get this thing, too not smart enough to go back to college, and all the things I've been able to accomplish in spite of all my self-defeating beliefs. So I've utilized things like that to try to break stigma, right? Where it's the person that suffers with it's usually complex things. Nowadays it's way more than just dual diagnosis, right? There's so many pieces, and like it's okay. Like we all hurt, we're all going through something. And what's really been fueled up in me lately is this whole black and white mentality. I'll let you chime in before I dig into that because I'm going to go down a rabbit hole.
Well, I'm interested exactly where you're going with that. So black and white. I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I'm wondering what do you mean by that, right? I mean, immediately what jumps up for me is I think, just kind of working in this field for a long time now. I mean, there's kind of this old school way of thinking about things, and I think it is really important that people start. I mean, it's nice to see that there is some movement that is very needed, but I think a lot of people are really stuck in the past still, unfortunately.
And I want to jump in real quick if I could. I am in this field for almost 20 years now, and I am a trauma therapist. I joke when I'm here and say, I've done a lot of trauma work. My entire career has been in trauma. I just happen to be at a detox center now. And so the component that I'm bringing to New Waters is this trauma way of thinking, and every behavior serves a purpose. It started somewhere, and it was helpful at one point. And now it's no longer helpful. Let's figure out why, and let's figure out this new skill that you can develop so that you can move forward. And everything is data. It's all it is data. That's how I start to phrase things with our clients. And when we were talking before the episode, I was really digging what you're saying. So I can't wait for everyone else to hear what you're saying, because I think this is where we need to go in this field.
Well, thank you for the work you do. I have been in trauma therapy since age 7. I'm 42, so that's a very long time of in and out. I've now been with my current therapist for 3.5 years. That's one piece to anyone in this field, is have a therapist.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I'm taking myself on a personal retreat to Costa Rica in December by myself,
Nice.
with kids, no friends and nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on all of that as professionals, right? Like we have to do our own work, because what good if I'm broken and a mess, And I am a broken mess sometimes, right? But I tune in and figure out what I need. Do I need more rest? Do I need to take time off? So the black and white thing, and I'm the first one to take ownership that I was born and raised in my personal recovery in a very black and white methodology. And I preach that. If you didn't do what I did, you weren't doing it right, and you were going to die.
Right.
And I firmly, maybe I needed that for a time of my recovery. I needed it to be that black and white for me to stay safe. But there's been countless situations that I look back at and wish that I had been more educated and more open-minded. Like I've had a slew of weekends of nonprofit events. I had like a pickleball tournament for a charity that we did. Then I went to Fort Myers, the west coast of Florida, to speak for my best friend's dad. My best friend died of an overdose in 2016. Kim Kinkle, and her dad, Al, and I are still really close. And I had started my nonprofit in her name that sent women in recovery to college, and that fizzled out. And it was a dark, ugly experience. Nonprofit is a business. It's not fun and games until when you get into the business, and I kind of got my heart broken in that experience. But now Kim's dad, a few years ago, started an RCO, recovery community organization in Fort Myers called Kimmy's Recovery Zone. And I got the honor to go be their keynote speaker. this year. And one of the things I shared was, if I would have been educated the way I am now, I would have been able to support Kim in a different way. And I think she'd still be alive in today's recovery landscape, right? Because I didn't understand, why would you stay on something when you want to be sober? And I think a lot of people are that way. And our experience and we can't do that as professionals. Like we can't, and I'll meet someone else, a friend, a client, and anybody with so much love, but to undo it in myself and give myself the grace has been the hardest. Right. So, I keep getting these women in my life with long-term recovery that feel like they're not doing it right, or they're not doing it good enough because it didn't look like the way it once did. And if you're waking up every day and like you're trying to take care of yourself, you're trying to be a better person, you're going to therapy, or you're doing self-care things, you're making meetings when you can. Like, I think that that's all incredible. And I want to honor people that are hard on themselves, that like, I'm not doing enough, because like maybe there's a person in the rooms that maybe is telling you that you're not doing enough. Because I got someone try to bully me the other night. I'm like, I'm not the one. I was at an 8:30 meeting and they were like, we'll see you at the 7 a.m. I go, the hell you won't. I'll be sleeping. If I'm going to an 8:30 p.m. meeting and I'm going to be going out to dinner, I know myself. I need rest. You're not going to bully me. Well, what would you have done for your hit? Or what would you have done for your, and I'm like, that is so not relevant to me. Like, you go bring that shit to somebody else, So, but there's not a lot of people that feel strong enough in that, like in their conviction and know who they are. So I see how we can do better. I see how we can do better and how we can meet more with compassion, love over like conviction and crucifixion and shaming people. Like it's taking people out the door and they're scared to come back.
It is, especially when people are already coming in with so much shame to begin with. I'm with you, Amanda. I think, why in the world would we try and add to that? Because I think a lot of what you're saying, and I think we do see this, right, is all we're doing is just adding to that shame, right? We're adding to that shame. We're adding to that, not feeling good enough, not going to be able to make it, all those things that person is struggling with anyway. And then we're just kind of, validating that for them, right?
We're furthering the cycle.
100%.
We're not breaking the cycle. And that's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do, is break those cycles. And let's move forward and find where we can find that inner peace that we're looking for, and that self-love that you keep talking about, Amanda.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's about peace and freedom and like being happy with like who you see in the mirror. And we're one organization that we decided some years back that like, I will take a client on that says to me, hey, I don't want to admit I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to talk about that. Like, but I want to explore my relationship with alcohol. I will take that woman on all day, or man, I will take them just because they don't want to be completely sober. I'm not going to turn them away, because this is giving me an opportunity for them to figure this out themselves. Right. We'll take on clients that, want to try to continue to smoke pot. Like, we will try to, fill their time with good things and have the therapy and the medication and kind of like come up with a way that like, we're not making it so it's like an all day thing, right? Like, if they are doing it, maybe they're just doing it at night, as to where they're doing it all day because they had nothing going on and nothing to do and no goals and no focus. So I know there's other organizations that if someone's not willing to commit to complete abstinence, that people won't work with them. And I will take people if they're willing to get better. And like, in many programs, it's like a desire, right? So if someone has a desire for improvement and puts in some work, I'm willing to work with them. And, of course, if it's safe. But usually these are like high functional people that like aren't convinced that, they can fix it themselves and they can figure it out. And they're going to find it. But let's them do that. Let's let them figure that out for themselves. I don't want to tell you what you are and you aren't. You need to tell yourself that.
Because I think that's where the power comes from anyway, right? I mean, it's all fine and dandy to sit back and share your clinical, opinion with someone, right? But if they have to come to believe these things for themselves, right? They have to come to develop a desire to want to change in the ways that they are going to find value, right? And I think that at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's important, and that's the only thing that's going to be effective, right?
I want to see more people live. I want to see more people make it.
Absolutely.
And if they're alive, there's a chance. And if there's progress, that's beautiful. If it's not perfect and it's kind of ugly sometimes, that's okay. If there's, I'm going to not use like, I spoke for a women's program with moms and kids the other night, like a pretty, state funded, like, ankle bracelets, like all that stuff. This one girl was like, I'm a chronic relapser. And I was like, I reached out to her after. I go, let's change that narrative, love. Let's change it to you're a chronic recovery seeker. Because then you're just beating yourself up for how many times you've been in and out. And that's right there alone is going to make you feel shameful, and as a mom, forget it. We feel way more shame when we're in addiction as a mother. It's brutal. Yeah, it's heavy stuff, but it's like, I'm not scared to put this out there. I'm not scared to have someone chat. Like I put a video up of, I went to a therapist friend's birthday dinner the other night, and it was all the three of us that were left over and went out dancing for a half hour. We were all in recovery. We went to this funny little place in Palm Beach Island. Are you down here? Because I saw you had a 561 number.
No, I'd lived in Palm Beach County for like 16 years.
So like Kachina? Do you know Kachina?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like
very familiar.
So I went to Kachina for like a half hour, and I had this video where I took, and I was walking through the wine cellar area of this restaurant in Palm Beach, and I just realized, like, how cool is it that, like, I probably wouldn't even have noticed this, but I was like waiting for somebody in the bathroom. So I like videoed me walking through the wine cellar, and I was like, I can go anywhere in my recovery and I can feel safe as long as I'm spiritually fit and I'm with the right people. And of course, someone's like, you shouldn't be, put teetering on your recovery. You're asking for it. And I'm like, no, I don't live like that. That's not how it is for me. Like, if I did feel comfortable, like I have a boyfriend who drinks. If I don't feel comfortable that day, I won't go hang out with his friends if they're drinking. And then there's other times where I don't care at all. And like, I was there to dance. I was there for a good meal. Like, those are the things that brought me there. I'm not going to live for me. I don't judge if someone else isn't comfortable with that. That's up to them. I'm not going to live in a box, but I'm also not going to go to like a dive bar or like, there's certain places I'm not going to put myself, but I want to go to nice restaurants. I want to dance. I was a hip hop dancer professionally. So like, I love that.
That's awesome.
I think it's important for all of us to remember, right? We're all on our own journey. Yeah. And what works for one person is not going to work for somebody else. And we all have our own way of getting to where we need to be. And we all need to have some sort of faith that we'll get to where we need to be. And the freedom to choose to get to where we need to be, right? And not feel, because the more we constrict, the more we're going to fight back in a way and rebel, because most people in recovery are like, nope, you ain't going to tell me what to do, right? And so it's just making sure everyone has a freedom to choose. And when they feel that freedom, you'll be amazed where people will go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely agree. It's like, I feel like there's a delicate balance with like the freedom, but like also some like non-negotiables, right? Like, like, commitment to your personal growth, like staying, like, but freedom to, like, we want our clients' input. We want to know what they like, what they connect with, what's working for them. Like, we want them to have a say in their care, because if they have a say in their care, they're much more apt to take it much more serious, and like, don't feel like they're just being like, you still to this day tell me what to do and I really don't like it. Tell me I can't do something, and then I'm going to show you how great I can do it. It's just in my being, even though all the work I've done, it's just still in there.
Right. It's about having boundaries, right? Because the more it's about boundaries allow us to know the freedom we can have. I think that was one of the most important things I've ever learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then like, kind of just on that to add to like the kind of way that we do things. So there's this big, thing that's been going on a long time. I was in an adolescent program, a TC model, very abusive, very awful. And so there's this thing that still goes on in this country, the whole like snatch and grab adolescents in the middle of the night and do transports. Like, we don't do that. Okay. So like how we do, maybe there's some cases that it's needed. I'm just very not for it. As a traumatized teen who was sent to a traumatizing program that did the opposite of what I needed to, like if I, the programs that are around today are so much more loving and hear the kids and call the parents out. And it just wasn't like that back then. But we, if a teenager's family calls us, and if it's just like some behavioral and some problematic using, it's nothing that's dangerous that like needs detox or anything, we will tell the family, let's set up a meeting. We're going to come by. Like if there's an older sibling, like let's include everybody and come. And by that time, once we've dug in with the family, we know what's going on. we have a plan proposal. Like, listen, we want you to do this for 2-3 weeks. Like, meet up with a coach, go to a therapist, go to a psychiatrist, like this time you come in the house, like you don't do, and let them have a say in their, what they want to say, because they always have something to say too, and hear them out. And then when we tell them treatment's on the table, that if these things don't work, we're coming back to get you and we're taking you to residential treatment. Anytime we come back, they go willing, because they've proven to themselves that they can't do it this way.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, we don't have kids blow up, and we're not traumatizing kids.
Right.
Treating them as humans.
Which is huge. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted as a broken, abused teenager, was somebody to hear me and understand me and like love me where I was at. I hated myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, thank goodness, right, that there's has been for a number of years, and there seems to be some movement, especially in the adolescent treatment and things like that, where things are moving in more of a, loving direction and meeting kids where they are. But you still do hear of these programs that do these, like you were saying, like these snatch and grab things. I think some of the wilderness programs still kind of do operate like that, and like it's
Yeah, I've been called and asked for it, and I told them absolutely not. My team does not do that. I'm not putting my team in that situation. That's traumatizing. And I'm not putting a kid in that situation from somebody who was physically abused, sexually abused. My sister was kidnapped and raped. Like, I am not putting some other kid through that shit. I'm not doing it.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. Amanda, one thing I wanted to touch base on, I know we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here, but I know that you did a show in the past, but I think you have not sure if you want to do a plug for that or anything, but you have a show that you've been working on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's a little, like, the little story that leads up to, but it's not super long. I'm not a long storyteller, thank God. So I was in acting and modeling from ages 4 to 22. I started like runway, did commercials, print work, hip hop videos, dance in concerts for like Britney Spears, Kid Rock. I danced for Ricky Martin, Sugar Ray, like all these famous kids. Like I did a performance for Kiss in Jamaica for something. But anyway, so all these, I had this whole like, for me, my using wasn't all awful. I had a lot of fun. So my last audition I went to in my addiction, I completely was like up from the night before and completely embarrassed myself. And it was something I was really shameful about. Like, I had all of this opportunity and all of this talent, and I like ruined it with so many people in that field. And, I had a dream when I came into recovery of being back on screen and being in entertainment of some kind of sorts, and giving back and being a woman of substance, not objectified for being a young, good looking, flawless body 18-year-old, but for being like a woman of substance. Right. And I came in, I was 200 pounds and I had a face full of acne. I was 230 actually. I didn't even look like myself when I came into recovery. But I worked really hard, and I remember manifesting 14 years ago that I wanted to be on the show Intervention.
Okay.
And I did a few auditions for it over the years, but during the COVID time, and then I'm trained in gaming addiction, gaming disorder, and social media addiction. So I got called for that show, and I worked the season doing that show, and it was like my toe in the water. It was kind of a spin-off of Intervention, but a little different because you're dealing with different kind of cases. And I got to work with 3 women on that, and that's out on A&E. It's on demand. You can find it. I had a friend tell me she was watching it the other day to educate her boyfriend on mental health.
Okay.
And then I just finished a month ago. I did my last out of 3 episodes for Intervention that's coming up on A&E, and also is streaming, I think, on Netflix and Hulu. I got to be the intervention professional for 3 episodes of it, and working with some individuals that were in horrific situations. I was in, Memphis, New Hampshire, and like Weaverville, California, which is like a very big meth place. So some places that Memphis, don't go. I thought it was going to be like Nashville. And I was like, this is not Toto. You're not in Nashville anymore. It was scary. We had bodyguards and stuff like that. Like it was like top 5 most dangerous cities right now. And like, they almost pulled it. But, I got to make an impact in these people's lives, and people that could never have afforded treatment, living under bridges, living in trap houses. Like, the amount of trap houses and kids living in them and the stuff that's going on literally all over our country, I think like I knew it, but when you see it, it's then on another level. Like we think this stuff goes on only in third world countries, and no, it is going on in a city near you everywhere. And the child protective services can't keep up with this stuff. Like, so working on that show for me, because I work with mostly very, high profile, like, people in entertainment, high wealth, net worth families, because they are very complex and have a lot more, they have a lot of things going on that they need additional support. So what's very interesting to me is that they're so different ends of the spectrum. The person living in the bridge or in the trap house has no access or no idea about any resources. And then the individual that has access to everything, right? And they both still struggle the same.
Right.
And so it was really good for me to see what I saw. I have like passion to create change in that area. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I don't think that we should have this going on all over our country, and kids should be, going through the situations I was in, seeing drugs at a young age, having abuse, and that's just going on everywhere. And there's like an area of Memphis, my friend told me, they won't even go in if 911's called. It's that scary.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's happening here. Like, we're seeing like all this horrible stuff that's going on overseas, and it's hideous and awful. I can't even turn the news on, but there is that going on literally in a neighborhood near all of us all the time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. It is. It's awful.
There's hope. There is hope. There's hope for the ones that have it all and don't want it because they have it all, and it's hard to give them bottom lines. And then the ones that don't have access to resources, like if anyone calls me, like even when we were filming the show, there was a girl that popped up that I can't say too much because it's not out yet, but there was a girl that popped up that wasn't part of the show that like I even offered help to, because I didn't want to leave her. I was like, hey, here's my number. Like, I know that you're not part of this, but like, I don't want to leave you here. So if you want help, I'll find you something, call me, and I'll do my best. Not everyone is a next level recovery associates client, but like anyone that calls me for anything, our team will always make sure that they have some kind of plan or path or phone numbers to call that can meet their needs.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I'm looking forward to watching the episode, so I'll keep my eye out for that. Amanda,
listen, I'll tell you, if anyone has a preconceived notion in our industry of the show, it is the most caring, wonderful production team ever.
Oh, wow.
They were crying when the things were going down. They were so compassionate and kind and non-judgmental when they were, filming certain things. And I was blown away by the love, and what they didn't know, they would ask us, and they never pretended like it was their area of expertise. And I just have the utmost respect for all of the team, the camera crew, the sound people, the producers. Like, they were just like, they're like part of my extended family now too. Like, I love them.
That's awesome. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, Amanda, thank you for spending some time with us, taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with myself and Erica. I always kind of like to wrap these up. So, I think that the big thing is for the podcast is to make it available for, education purposes and resources for families or people that are kind of currently struggling and kind of exploring what that option may look like. Obviously, some professionals watch it as well. But if you had to kind of leave the audience with one idea or one thing, I know not to put you on the spot, like what would be that one thing that you would want to say? Okay, go for it.
Well, there's two things. So, of course, there's never one thing with me. I love it. So one thing for people that are struggling in addiction that like maybe have been in and out, always, if you're clean and sober today and there's some funky idea you have in your head and there's something you haven't told anyone, you need to tell at least one person what's really going on. The thoughts, the thing. It doesn't have to be the whole wide world. Doesn't have to be a group. It could be whoever you feel safe. And you could tell this person this thing and this person this thing. So there's no right and wrong way to do it. Just make sure you talk about the things that you need to come out. That's going out to people that are struggling. For families or for anyone that's searching, like if you can and you do have the resources, family coaching, family therapy, wraparound services, case management. We don't want to be at next level recovery associates. We don't want to be a Band-Aid. Our goal is to create lasting change in the individual, the family system, or in the corporate space. So, do it right and do it right the first time. Don't go on Google, ask a trusted professional that or somebody that's been through it before. Word of mouth, you're going to get the best. It just terrifies me when I hear, families search on Google and be current, because what a program used to be 2 years ago, it could have been sold and changed and gutted and have new staff. So people like us who tour programs all the time are up to date with what's what and what's current. So, the more help, the better. The longer term the support and oversight, the better rates of living a long, happy, beautiful life. It's like, if you're going to do this, do it right and do it all the way.
Words of wisdom.
Or if you've done it 10 times, this time, let's do it right, and make it the last time. Because, sometimes the people that come to us are just like so done that they don't believe anything's going to work. Just don't give up hope. There's hope for everyone.
There you go. I love that. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. Erica, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And it was really great to meet you. And I look forward to following you on IG.
Yeah, definitely. And I've known Graham and Chloe a very long time, since they lived down here. So, I know there's been some talk of myself or someone from my team coming up to see you guys. So I'd love to.
Yeah, would love that.
Thank you for the work you're doing. And thank you for doing trauma work for 20 years. That means you have to do extra self-care like I do.
Right.
Sometimes these families expect us to know the answers to everything, and sometimes we don't know the answers, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely. Very good.
Thank you both.